They discovered the shocking truth behind Tabitha's resurrection by Peter. Few knew what truly happened that night in Joppa. The air felt thick, heavy with sorrow. Tabitha lay lifeless, her body still and cold, surrounded by grieving friends. They spoke in frantic whispers, their hearts racing, desperate to make sense of it all. She had been such a vibrant spirit, known for her kindness, crafting garments for the poor. Now, she was gone, leaving a void that felt unbearable as the sun dipped below the horizon. A flicker of hope emerged. Peter, the bold apostle, was summoned. Word traveled fast, a tantalizing hint of miracles floating like smoke. Would he dare defy death? Could he bring Tabitha back to life? The whispers grew louder, swirling around the room as his name was mentioned. Just the thought sent shivers down spines. The onlookers exchanged wary glances, hope battling with whispers of doubt. Arriving at the house, Peter felt the energy shift. The mourners' tears painted the atmosphere with grief. But there was something electric in the air, too. He pushed through the throng, their faces twisted in shock and despair as they stepped away, creating a path for the man of God. The room smelled of loss, but beneath it, a spark of anticipation stirred. It felt as if the very walls held their breath that he knelt beside Tabitha's lifeless form, his heart pounding in his chest. Would he be able to perform the miracle they needed? As he prayed, silence enveloped the room. No one dared breathe. The only sound was the rustle of Peter's cloak brushing against the floor. His voice rose softly, a powerful current surging through him, calling on the divine. "Tabitha, arise," he commanded, his words echoing off the walls. The stillness stretched, time bending awkwardly as they all dared to believe. Then, a shiver ran through the air. Tabitha stirred. Her breath caught on the edge of reality, life returning to her limbs. Gasps filled the room, disbelief etched on every face. Some cried out in joy, while others gasped in shock. Was this real, or was it madness? The crowd watched, amazed, hearts racing, desperate for answers as Peter helped her sit up, alive and whole. But why? Why did Peter respond to her when so many others had died? What secrets lay behind this miracle? Was it faith? Was it something deeper and more mysterious? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the joyous exclamations filled the room, Tabitha's return to life became a whirlwind of emotions, an overpowering blend of gratitude and confusion. Faces once etched with despair now glowed with radiant relief. Peter, still in a state of awe himself, felt the weight of the moment. His thoughts drifted as he observed the unyielding faith flickering in the hearts of those around him. Yet, the miracle hung heavy in the air, asking questions that lingered in the shadows. Why Tabitha? Why not another? As they gathered closer to her, enveloping her in warmth, the reality of her resurrection began to carve a deeper understanding of faith and hope. The whispers among the mourners turned from despair to speculation, wondering if this was just a glimpse of what divinely ordained purpose lay ahead. Tabitha blinked as the confusion lifted, aware of the intensity of the stares upon her. Her senses were awash with a deep longing not to only live but to truly understand what had happened to her. The familiar faces regaining their strength were not purely those of gratitude. There was an essence of something grander awakening within each of them. What lessons had they missed? What truths lay folded in the fabric of this astonishing event? As she sat surrounded by her friends, each recounting their memories of her kindness, there was a gentle pull within her spirit. What does it mean to live anew? She wondered. Time had forgotten her once, but now, would she be called to fulfill a greater purpose, one that resonated beyond the earthly attachment to life? What role would she play in the unfolding narrative of faith, resurrection, and divine love? Peter's voice broke through her reverie, as he spoke with authority yet tenderness, recounting the power of faith that had manifested itself in the act of her resurrection. He spoke not just of power, but also of humility and service, the very fibers of Tabitha's essence. But a quiet voice began to stir within her heart. It echoed the endless questions left unanswered. Had she simply returned to fulfill an immediate need, or was there a celestial assignment awaiting her grasp? And as the light gleamed through the windows, illuminating the faces around her, she felt an unshakable connection to the fabric of life that intertwined their existence. The crowd began to gather outside, eager to witness the wonder that had unfolded within. As Peter prepared to address them, Tabitha felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. Would they understand the significance of this event? Just as they celebrated her return, were they ready to embrace the mysteries that hovered around life and death, hope and despair, divinity and purpose? As Peter began to speak, she caught fragments of his words, but her thoughts swirled in a chaotic yet beautiful dance, contemplating what it meant to answer the call to life once more. Could her resurrection be a catalyst for some yet unseen change? A whispered question remained, haunting yet hopeful. What must she learn from this gift, and how would it shape the world around her? As the last echoes of Peter's voice enveloped the room, the atmosphere shifted. It thickened with the weight of unspoken revelations and the fragility of existence. Tabitha sat, a living paradox between the past she had left behind and the future she was yet to comprehend. She could feel the energy radiating from the crowd outside, a growing anticipation that danced alongside her own simmering curiosity. Waving back the exhilaration of being alive, she listened intently. Peter spoke of the miracles they had witnessed, the lives transformed through faith. His words were a tapestry woven from threads of encouragement and challenge, inviting the listeners to understand that their reality was shaped not just by what was seen, but by the ingredients of belief, action, and divine grace. She recognized the echoes of her own life in his message, a life dedicated to serving others, yet now she found herself at the epicenter of this divine act. Each of us carries a purpose, Peter continued, gazing into the faces that hung on his every syllable. Do you not see that just as Tabitha had been a light to those around her, her resurrection calls us to reflect on our own journeys, our own calls to service and love? In that moment, Tabitha's heart was stirred by a profound connection to the earthiness of humanity, the honesty wrapped in their struggles. It wasn't just about her. It was about the community that had gathered. Each soul present had stories woven with sorrow and joy, intertwined as surely as she now felt tied to them. She was not merely revived. She was redefined, tasked with the responsibility of witnessing to the miracle of their shared existence. But the lingering questions pressed deeper within her. What of her experience beyond? A tantalizing thread of memory teased at the edges of her mind, a whisper of another realm, a peace she could scarcely articulate. Where had she been, and why had she returned? As if sensing her internal wrestling, Peter turned to her, a gentle smile lifting his features. Tabitha, share with us your heart. What have you discovered through this miracle? His question suspended in the air, demanding an answer only she could provide. The crowd fell into a hush, a wave of expectancy washing over her. She could feel their hope pinned to her response, and anxiety threaded through her resolve. Gathering her breath, she began. I have traveled through a veil that is hard to describe, and what I found was vast, unfathomable love and peace. Yet the heartbeat of life pulled me back. I now understand that every moment holds significance. Her voice quivered with the truth of her newfound understanding. To live is to engage in a cycle of giving and receiving, of witnessing and being witnessed. The life I had led filled my soul, but now, I see I am called to share more, a deeper love, a truer service. The crowd stirred, contemplating her words, absorbing their layers. Yet those same questions remained in the depth of her heart. What was required of her now? What does it mean to live as one who has danced with death and returned? With each gaze focused on her, she felt not just their expectation but an unspoken challenge. To embody the lessons learned, to open herself to the collective journey they all shared. She could feel her destiny weaving itself into the stories of those present, their hopes and fears mingling with her own. Yet beyond the gathering and the shared graces, something else was pressing down like an impending storm. A chill of uncertainty swirled amongst the warmth, as whispers of doubt echoed through her mind. Was her purpose to bring solace or confront the deeper fears that life and death entailed? And as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows behind them, Tabitha reflected on her next steps. How do you reconcile a life given back with the weight of expectation? What does it mean to be a living testament of hope in a world fraught with ambiguity? Her journey was hardly over but merely beginning. Depression and light, truth and mystery intertwined, laying the foundation for something greater. What was the true significance of her returning, and how would it shape her destiny and that of those around her? The echoes of this inquiry stirred like a current, leaving her to wonder. Was she a servant of hope, or was she a vessel for a greater revelation yet to unfold? As the light of the setting sun bathed the room in hues of gold and crimson, Tabitha felt the weight of expectation steaming from the souls surrounding her. Peter's question, a delicate thread woven through the fabric of the gathering, hung palpably in the air. Each look, each furrowed brow, was a silent plea for understanding. She could feel a shift, as if the spirit of those who had witnessed her return intertwined with her own. "Did I see the questions in your eyes?" she said, gently, her voice steadying with each word. "You each seek answers to mysteries far greater than my own. You live in anticipation of miracles, yet you must recognize your part within this story. My resurrection is not simply for me. It is for all of us to ponder what it means to be alive, to love, and to serve." That a murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, hearts vibrating with the resonance of her words. She sensed a delicate dance of emotions swirling around her, as if the truths hidden in their lives swelled to the surface, exposed by her own experience. How can we fully grasp the divine within us if we shy away from our striving? It is no lesser act to wrestle with doubt and fear. Sometimes, truly believing means confronting the parts of ourselves that tremble in the shadow of uncertainty. Peter nodded, his eyes sparkling with insights not yet fully captured. Speaking to those fears invites them to the dance. It's in acknowledging our fragility that we grasp the strength born from faith. In that moment, Tabitha's thoughts turned inward. She could feel the thrum of uncertainty beneath her confidence. She had peered beyond the veil, yet the significance of it was opening up like a blossoming flower before her. What had that experience taught her about the complexities of existence? Was she merely a beacon of hope, or was she a harbinger of deeper truth? The gathered community began to share in whispers, exchanging stories of their own struggles, their burdens, their moments of light and darkness. As tales unfolded, she realized how interconnected they all were in this web of life. Voices once silenced now found resonance, and the cracks of their brokenness began to heal in the warmth of shared experience. "Tell us more," a voice broke through, a man whose eyes revealed a reservoir of pain and loss. "What does resurrection require of us?" His powerful inquiry sent murmurs of uncertainty once again. It was a question that rattled the foundations of their understanding, an echo that searched for a response not easily defined. How could she infuse her experience into the fabric of what it meant to live with purpose? "What it requires of us," Tabitha began, feeling the swell of spirit coursing through her, "is to embrace each fleeting moment as an invitation and opportunity to either break or to build. We will encounter moments of despair, but in the face of such reality, we also find strength in grace. It is in remembering that we are not alone in our struggles that we reclaim our kinship with each other." The crowd listened with bated breath, eyes widening with recognition. Here was the tension between darkness and light that gave life its depth, woven not only into her resurrection but into their very existence. But within the tapestry she sought to create lay a darker thread, one frayed with questions left unanswered. If resurrection brought liberation, it also prompted reflection. What of those lost? What truths lay beyond this life, and what lay ahead for them beyond the threshold of mortal uncertainty? Emboldened by the collective energy, she looked towards Peter, almost seeking confirmation, and in his supportive gaze found encouragement. "Let us not forget those who have walked before us. Their stories intertwine with ours, each whispering their own truths. While my return shines light on the miracle of life, it also beckons our understanding of death as a passage, not merely an end. The silence hung heavy in the air as Tabitha's voice dove deeper into contemplation. Each member of the crowd faced their own mortality as a part of the larger narrative. Fear, joy, sorrow, and hope all danced in the shared space of humanity. With each breath, we are gifted the opportunity to honor our losses and to weave them within the story of our living. We can decide to transform grief into service, to heal through loving labor, just as I was loved when I was gone. As Tabitha finished speaking, an unquiet stillness enveloped the gathering. The air crackled with the weight of revelation. She felt the prickling urgency to clarify, to delve deeper once again into the vital question that haunted her heart. Was her return a sacred calling to lead them through the darkness, or a revelation that would shatter the very foundations of their beliefs? In that moment, she realized the quest for understanding was not hers alone. It rippled through the crowd like a wave reached by the ocean's tide. What deeper truth lay hidden in the shadows of their lives, waiting to be discovered, and would confronting it illuminate the path forward, or plunge them further into mystery? Tabitha felt the dynamic energy in the room shift, coiling like a spring ready to release. A hush had settled, and as the silence deepened, it became a canvas upon which thoughts and feelings could be painted. Each individual present bore their own scars, every heart a complex tapestry of experience. She could feel the weight of their collective yearning, and within that resonance, a flicker of insight ignited. There is a story that has been woven into the fabric of every moment, one that recognizes the sacredness in desire, even when born from pain. As resurrected beings, we are asked to ponder our journeys not as isolated trails, but as intertwined paths leading us toward a greater understanding. The love we give and receive becomes the balm that eases our suffering. A shiver coursed through the crowd, awakening a blend of apprehension and curiosity. Tabitha recalled the countless nights asleep in darkened corners of her own heart, awakening to the dawning understanding that her resurrection could transcend the boundaries of flesh, crafting a new narrative. But what did resurrection mean when death is so intimately entwined with life? The thought slipped from her mind, swiftly captured by the unfolding conversation. A woman emerged from the back of the gathering, her voice quivering like a soft breeze. But Tabitha, what if we are forever defined by our losses? Can new life truly blossom through the ashes? Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd, curious eyes fixed on Tabitha as if she possessed the key to a forgotten door. What if our resurrection is merely a distraction from our deepest wounds? A thoughtful silence lingered before Tabitha replied. Our wounds, like roots buried deep, nourish new growth. They offer lessons steeped in love and resilience, if only we honor their existence. To recognize that our scars do not define us, but rather shape us, is part of the grace bestowed upon us. Resurrection is not just about the triumph over death. It is about cultivating life within every loss. The sentiment tugged at the hearts of the listeners. They began to exchange glances filled with revelations of understanding, their thoughts weaving together in a shared experience. This was not a singular journey, but a collective exploration. Peter, who had remained contemplative, stepped forward, his presence steady. We are the living testimonies of this truth. Each one of us carries the echoes of loved ones lost. Yet within that echo lies the call for remembrance, for tribute. It is said that we do not die until the last soul that remembers us breathes no more. He paused, the gravity of his words sinking gently into the gathered crowd. It is our duty to not merely mourn, but to honor our bonds, to become vessels that carry the light of those who have departed. By voicing their stories and sharing their love, we breathe life back into memories that sustain us. Tabitha's heart raced with a profound urge to probe deeper. In this call to honor our lost kin lies the freedom to redefine what it means to be alive. How do we keep the spirit of those we cherish from fading like whispers in the wind? In that moment, the room filled not only with voices, but with the tender remembrance of lives that touched theirs. Tales began to blossom, stories of joy and sacrifice, laughter intertwined with tears, memories honored with resounding gratitude. Each exchange explored the delicate balance between remembering and living, illuminating the way forward like fragile lanterns set adrift upon a sea of uncertainty. The atmosphere shifted. Warmth enveloped them as the weight of grief transformed into a gentle embrace of understanding. Yet, underlying the beauty of their connection lay an edge of unexamined truth. Lifting her gaze to the faces surrounding her, Tabitha posed a question that lingered like a distant echo. But amidst this profound journey toward understanding, how can we confront the silent truths of ourselves that we fear may shatter the bonds we cherish? What happens when the memories we hold dear also carry our unvoiced regrets and long-held uncertainties? As the question echoed through the room, the air thickened with potential possibilities unfurling like wings, shadows dancing just out of sight. Beneath the quiet warmth of shared connection, a deeper mystery loomed, yearning to be acknowledged. And in that illuminating darkness, an imperceptible yet unmistakable call awaited their response. Would the community find the courage to embrace their unvoiced fears, or would they, in the pursuit of light, overlook the shadow's necessary place in their unfolding story? As the weight of Tabitha's inquiry hung in the air like a thick fog, the room brimmed with an uneasy anticipation. Faces turned pensive, and thoughts deepened like roots seeking water in dry soil. The vulnerability born from shared stories had forged a fragile bond, yet the fearfulness woven within unaddressed truths held them at the precipice of deeper understanding. Among the assembly, one man stood still, eyes shimmering, weight of the world upon his shoulders. He had witnessed Tabitha's resurrection firsthand, marveled at her return, and felt witness to the inexplicable. But deep within him, a whisper of doubt stirred alongside his faith, a chiaroscuro of light and shadow. Tabitha, he spoke, his voice like a finely drawn bow, taut with emotion. I was your friend when you walked this earth. I celebrated your life, yet I couldn't fully embrace the miracle of your coming back. What if your resurrection reveals not just new beginnings, but also our inability to reckon with what we have lost? A murmur passed through the crowd, heads nodding in solemn recognition. It was an ancient tension, the paradox of restoration nestled within the inevitability of loss. If you have returned, he continued, what have you taken with you from that world? What of the sorrow that still remains? Could it be that your resurrection is a mirror, reflecting our own fears? The possibility that we have yet to reconcile isolation in our darkest hours? Tabitha's breath caught in her throat. She felt the raw honesty in his words, the longing for an answer that had eluded them all. What if, she implored, we think of resurrection not as mere return, but as a conscious reckoning with the truth we harbor? Perhaps the weight of our losses is not intended to shackle us, but to lead us, guiding us to unearth that which we have hidden even from ourselves. Peter watched with keen interest as Tabitha spoke, his own thoughts swirling like eddies of a stream. Yes, we are called to explore the tension of our memories, he added, leaning forward. But in that exploration, we must confront the essence of redemption that lies beneath the surface. Resurrection, my friends, is more than a return. It is an invitation to reimagine our paths and redefine our purpose. A hesitant silence fell, and within it, questions bloomed that played against the backdrop of their stories. What if resurrection nurtures a raw honesty, Tabitha murmured, one that lays bare not only our victories but our failures? What if our willingness to face these truths becomes the very essence of our growth? Another voice chimed in, a mother who had cradled grief as an inseparable companion. To face truths, we must first acknowledge the shadows that which we fear. But how can we open the door to our deepest fears without it consuming us? The echoes of her question reverberated through the gathering, awakening a profound conflict that craved resolution. Tendrils of anxiety gripped them, yet a flame of courage flickered among their ranks as Tabitha sought deeper within. Luke, she called out softly to the man who had first shared his doubts. You carried the weight of your fears when I was alive. Have those fears shifted now with my resurrection? Or do they still bind you? Is there power in the truths we dare to share, or do they recede into silence? As he met her gaze, the atmosphere shifted, laden with both hesitation and the promise of revelation. Luke's eyes shimmered as he considered the way forward. Were the unvoiced fears a source of isolation, or could they be a catalyst for intimacy? In that moment, The crowd could almost feel the breath of insight brushing against their consciousness, urging them toward introspection as the tension hung palpably in the air. Tabitha sensed the urgent need to unwrap the mystery they shared, a collective experience requiring their courage to delve both inward and outward. What if embracing our truth, no matter how raw or unsettling, becomes the very foundation upon which our resurrection expands? She proposed, her voice soft yet insistent. Could it be that only through understanding who we are, shadows and all, can we truly honor those we have lost and live for those who carry our legacy forward? As the murmurs of contemplation unfurled, a deeper mystery beckoned them to explore. Would they find the courage to reveal and embrace the darker aspects of their shared journey? What unspoken truths awaited them, and which paths were yet to be illuminated in their quest for understanding? As the conversation swirled with the fervor of unyielding curiosity, a palpable urgency swept through the gathering. Each participant felt a magnetic pull toward the heart of their fears. Yet a hesitance lingered in the air, thickening like the dew of dawn over an uncertain field. Tabitha's resurrection had ignited something inexplicable, a flame of inquiry that flickered with both promise and unease. She turned her gaze to Peter, who had been a vessel of faith and strength for many, always unfaltering at the helm of their community. "Peter," she called out, the warmth of her voice cutting through the tension. "You have traveled far and seen wonders, miracles that defy understanding. Yet, even in the presence of such divine power, do you believe we stand at the edge of our own mystery? Is it possible that my return is not just about me, but about you and every heart that feels burdened by the weight of unfinished business?" The air shifted, and Peter's brows furrowed deeply in thought. He felt the sacred weight in her question, a deeper beckoning to uncover not only the miracles but the shadows that loomed over each life present. As sunlight broke through the clouds outside, illuminating the room, Peter stood to share his thoughts, his voice steady yet overflowing with sincerity. "We are, after all, a tapestry of intertwined stories, some splashed with color and others marred by stains. What this moment draws out is more than mere healing. It compels us to look upon the very threads that bind us." A murmur echoed among the group, the recognition dawning within them, the illumination of their disparate journeys converging in a singular focus of redemption. "In embracing your return, Tabitha," Peter continued, "we are being called not to dismiss our losses but to honor them, allowing them to transform into the fuel of our resilience. Hasn't your resurrection revealed shadows we tucked away, the griefs we feared confronting, yet which have the potential to weave new wisdom into our lives?" With a surge of courage, Luke spoke once more, his voice trembling slightly. "But how, dear friends, do we navigate such precarious terrain? When the shadows echo tales of pain, isn't it easier to let them remain buried? Tabitha's return is a radiant beam, yes, but it shines light onto depths we may not wish to explore. But it is precisely within those depths," Tabitha intervened softly, her eyes radiant with understanding, "where our true selves await. To live fully, we must first understand that we are all collected dust, molded from stardust and sorrow alike. The acknowledging of our fears opens the gates to deeper relationships, a stronger fellowship forged not just from shared joys but from shared burdens." An old woman, shrouded in wisdom, raised her trembling hand, drawing their attention. "How can we embark on this path of reckoning without fear that it will overwhelm us, consume us whole?" Her voice resonated with the weight of years, a blend of longing and despair. Peter's countenance softened as he approached the woman, his heart resonating with her vulnerability. "Every story has a birthplace of pain, my sister. We must learn to tell our narratives not merely with our mouths but with our hearts. Let us share the unspoken, walk alongside one another in our uncertainties. There is strength in vulnerability, and like flowers striving toward the sun, we need both the shadows and light to flourish." The crowd pondered Peter's words, and as the room lingered in reflection, a deep, aching longing echoed through their hearts. The sweetness of connection danced with the bitterness of fear, leaving an unresolved tension that resonated deeply within every soul. Does embracing our shadows pull us closer to resurrection, or does it unveil a rift too vast to traverse? Tabitha's voice broke through the silence, urging them to ponder. Each heart felt the weight of the question, the depths of their exploration yet to be revealed, and with the flickering candlelight mirroring their inner turmoil, they stood on the precipice of understanding, asking themselves together, what truths remain unearthed in our stories, and how might they illuminate our journey toward healing and wholeness? As the contemplative silence enveloped the gathering, a gentle breeze wafted through the open window, carrying with it the murmurs of the outside world. The streets thrummed with life, but within the walls of that humble abode, the weight of deep reflection held them captive. Tabitha's resurrection had indeed stirred an awakening, one that pushed each soul closer to their truth yet left them teetering on the edge of the unknown. Peter, feeling the gravity of this shared struggle, sensed a divine calling urging him not just to guide but to share, his heart swelling with a resolve he hadn't known before. "We are on a sacred journey together," he began, his voice steady yet vulnerable. "As we confront our fears, we must also embrace the gifts hidden within the darkness. It is in the shadows that we often unearth the most profound truths." His words ignited flickers of inspiration in the listeners. Luke, still wrestling with uncertainty, asked, "But Peter, what if these truths lead us to places we cannot return from? What if they fracture the very foundations of our faith?" His voice trembled, revealing the raw edges of his concern. The old woman, brimming with wisdom, turned to her fellow seekers. "The nature of faith is not to evade our fears but to invite them into our hearts. When we lay bare the wounds that bind us, we create room for healing. Might we not find courage in each other's truths?" A heartbeat of recognition rippled through the room. From the edges of vulnerability, a bond was beginning to take shape, a spiritual web woven with understanding. Peter took a step closer to Tabitha, who radiated warmth and acceptance. "Your return inspires us to become the authors of our own stories again, to reclaim the narratives that have been silenced by sorrow." As they spoke, a shadow of doubt lingered, creating an undercurrent of uneasiness as if something profound lay on the verge of being revealed. Suddenly, a young man named Eli, whose enthusiasm had waned in the face of adversity, raised his hand with uncertainty. "But what if the truths we uncover leave us more fractured than before? What if Tabitha's miracle, rather than bringing us together, unearths divisions we cannot bridge?" Eyes turned toward Eli, the weight of his question settling like a thick fog in the air. The room held its breath, waiting for the response, a shared yearning for understanding echoing in the silence. Peter looked earnestly at Eli, sensing the raw fear beneath his words. "It is natural to fear the unknown, but to remain stagnant in our wounds is a far greater peril. Resurrection entails risk. It dares us to confront our deepest fears." When Tabitha transformed from death to life, she embodied the very essence of resurrection, not just for herself, but for us all. Looking among the small gathering, Tabitha spoke, her voice a soothing balm. "Perhaps we must first allow ourselves to be broken before we can be healed. The cracks in our spirit might just reveal the beauty of light, shining through the flaws we are so quick to hide. Isn't the story of every resurrection rooted in a narrative of loss?" The group pondered her words, hope intertwining with trepidation. Each began to share the moments that had left them feeling fragmented, unworthy of love or connection. Stories emerged, like broken pieces of pottery, revealing the fragility of their spirits yet astonishingly beautiful in their vulnerability. As the hours passed, a sacred space formed within that gathering, where hearts danced between fear and faith, and each shared story wove into an emerging tapestry of communal healing. Yet, as light dimmed outside, a pressing question steadied in the air, yearning for resolution. What would we uncover about our true selves if we dared to confront our shadows, and do we have enough courage to walk into the depths of our collective grief? Amidst the flickering shadows, they understood that the journey toward resurrection demanded more than mere acknowledgement of their trials. It beckoned them to embody those truths bravely. In their hearts, they held the silent question: was the newfound knowledge gained through this confrontation a path to real healing, or would they ultimately find themselves standing amid unbridgeable rifts? As the night deepened, the warmth of the gathered souls offered respite against the encroaching chill. Peter, feeling the weight of the moment, glanced at each face in the circle, as if searching for hidden shards of understanding among them. Tabitha sat quietly, the glow of her returned life casting a soft light that illuminated more than just her presence. It shimmered with possibilities both wondrous and terrifying. "Let us not shy away from the tension of the unknown," he declared, his voice cutting through the silence like a beacon in the dark. "What happens when we are faced with the truths we wish to hide? Could it be that in our struggles, we encounter a catalyst for something greater?" At this, Luke leaned forward, a furrow of contemplation written across his brow. "But what if those truths are too painful? What if every person here carries a secret so burdensome that it threatens to rip apart the very fabric of our community?" A flicker of fear danced in the eyes around the room. Each had faced their own demons of betrayal, a loss, a haunting regret, and these shadows intruded, threatening the fragile fellowship they were building. "Then we must bear that burden together," Tabitha offered gently, her voice a soothing river flowing against the jagged rocks of anguish. "Remember, I returned from death not simply to live again, but to awaken the possibility of life within each of you. It's as though I have been given a second chance not only for myself, but for us all." Her words, simmering with compassion, pulled them closer. Peter felt a surge of purpose welling within him. "In every resurrection, there is a shifting of the stones that once bound us," he mused. "Could it be that the act of sharing our truths, however difficult, is the very foundation on which our newfound community is built?" Eli, still wrestling with the shadows of his fears, leaned in tentatively. "But Peter, if we are to unravel the knots of our past, might this not bring about chaos? And what if, in that chaos, each of us unravels instead of mends?" Realizing the truth of Ella's confession, Peter took a moment, his eyes filled with understanding. Chaos can indeed be a precursor to creation. Sometimes we must dismantle the old to make way for the new. Just look at a caterpillar. It must undergo a terrifying transformation to emerge as a butterfly. A soft murmur of agreement passed through the gathering. The analogy sparked a light, illuminating the possibility that change, albeit disruptive, may hold within it the seeds of growth. However, a shadow still loomed, an unspoken anxiety mingling with hope. And what if we share our truths and are met with rejection or fear? Luke spoke with unease, his vulnerability hanging in the air like a delicate thread. Tabitha addressed Luke with a knowing gaze that felt ancient and wise. "To risk bearing our souls is to stand naked before each other. But in our nakedness, we might find the strength to embrace our imperfections. Isn't it a profound act of love to allow others to see us wholly, and to invite them into our complexities?" As this thought rippled through the room, a sense of urgency crackled between Thema yearning to confront their shared fears in the light of Tabitha's miraculous return. "Perhaps the time has come for each of us to acknowledge the shadows that linger within," Peter proposed, breaking the delicate tension that filled the air. "I would stand with you shoulder to shoulder in this journey," he continued. "Together we might discover that our truths do not have the power to divide us, but rather to forge a bond stronger than any we've known." Inspired by his words, one by one, those seated began to share whispered fears, flickering doubts, and unspoken wounds. Stories poured forth like rain after a drought, washing over them and filling the cracks that had previously separated their spirits. Each narrative merged into a collective tapestry of shared humanity that revealed both beauty and pain. Yet, beneath their earnest confessions lay another silent question, echoing softly amid the brave storytelling. What if the act of unveiling our truths leads not to healing, but to deeper rifts? Are we prepared to confront the possibility that some truths are not meant to be shared, and that perhaps the act of resurrection carries with it the weight of further fragmentation? The gathering sat with these questions, the flickering candlelight casting shadows that danced across their faces, an exquisite reminder of both the light and darkness that intertwined within each of them. As the conversations ebbed and flowed, an awareness began to weave through the gathering. Each shared story, imbued with sorrow and hope, conjured a sense of collective reckoning, a shared destiny waiting to be unveiled. The flickering candlelight cast a sacred glow, revealing the power in their vulnerability, but the shadows also held whispers of doubt. Peter, feeling the stirring resonance, lifted his voice gently, reverberating through the hush. "In every truth lies a choice to either embrace the light or retreat into darkness. The essence of resurrection is not confined to the moment of revival. It speaks to a life lived in earnestness, fully awake and aware, despite the fears that may cling to us. The crowd reflected deeply upon his words, contemplating the tension between their fears and the desire to heal. They were artists standing before a canvas of possibility, poised to create anew. Eli, emboldened by the atmosphere of encouragement, spoke with a steadiness he had not felt before. What if this resurrection of ours means transformation and invitation to shed our old selves and emerge anew, like the caterpillar breaking free from its cocoon? What if sharing our truths is the very cocoon that prepares us for flight? His words shimmered like morning dew, casting a fresh light upon their collective struggle. Each heart stirred, awakening a sense of purpose, as if they had all been waiting for permission to embrace whatever lay beyond the threshold of their shared darkness. The shared understanding enveloped them, significantly shifting the atmosphere. Tabitha, her spirit buoyed by this wave of realization, added with warmth, "What if our interconnected truths do not divide, but unify? Each story unearthed is a thread that binds us close, an intricate weave of humanity that recognizes the beauty of our imperfections. It is within the fractured pieces that we often find the most compelling stories of resilience." With her words, silence transformed into a sacred space, each listener reflecting upon their own narratives, the laughter intertwined with sorrow, the healing within trauma. There was a collective acknowledgement that they held the threads of one another's stories, and suddenly, the weight of fear seemed lighter as it was lifted into the sacred act of sharing. A woman, her voice trembling yet resolute, stood to speak. "I once feared that sharing my grief would burden those around me, but now, I wonder if it might instead inspire others to share their own. It took my moment of sorrow to recognize not just my own struggle, but the beauty within each of your stories. Your courage gives me strength." As murmurs of agreement spread through the gathering, Tabitha leaned forward, feeling the affinity growing amongst them. "We stand together in our humanity. Light and shadow weave an intricate tapestry. It reminds us that every life lives in the ebb and flow of joy and sorrow, love and loss. We can rise together as we learn to embrace the wholeness of our existence." With each exchange, something magnificent began to shimmer within the gathering. A shared understanding birthed from fragility and strength. The walls of their hearts cracked open, allowing connection to flow in. Luke's voice trembled once more, "In dancing with the shadows, will we emerge whole, or will we unearth the fractures deep within our souls?" In the stillness that followed, Peter stepped forward, eyes glowing with conviction. "Perhaps it is less about being whole and more about accepting the beauty in our brokenness. Resurrection is not the absence of struggle. It is the journey navigated through it. The beauty of life thrives in our willingness to confront both light and shadow, crafting from despair the courage to shine brightly." With solemn acknowledgement, the community stood at a crossroads, each heart aligning in a collective desire for healing as they gazed upon Tabitha, the living testament of resurrection, standing among them. In that moment, the air hummed with expectancy. They sensed the potential stirring beyond mere words. The journey towards a deeper understanding of themselves beckoned them, and with every pulse of shared emotion, they felt their individual struggles unite, carving a new path forward. Tabitha's mind danced with the wisdom gleaned from her experience beyond the veil. Each of us carries a spark of the divinia thread that connects us to each other and to the universe at large. In acknowledging our deepest fears and our wildest hopes, we cultivate sacred ground where new life can flourish. Our stories may shimmer with cracks, but just as a beautiful mosaic, they become more stunning for each piece contributing to a grander masterpiece. The candlelight flickered softly, echoing the hearts that pulsed with newfound anticipation. The gentle embrace of hope enveloped them, allowing them to transform their histories into a shared narrative of redemption and connection. The true miracle lay not only in Tabitha's resurrection but in the awakening that unfolded within those present. Then, with a resolute breath, Tabitha proclaimed, "Let us be a beacon of light for one another." Our journeys are woven together, inviting us to step beyond our own fears and extend our hands to support one another in love. For the real meaning of resurrection does not dwell in the triumph over death, but in the commitment to live fully before we find our end. As her words settled over the gathering, The warmth of realization embraced them. Something magnificent had begun to unfold. Together, they stood poised to forge ahead, daring to explore the unfathomable that lay hidden in the depths of their shared stories. The rifts that threatened to tear them apart slowly transformed into pathways of unity, strength, and compassion. In that consciousness, a stirring hope ignited a question that lingered. What beauty awaited them beyond their fears, when heartbreak became the crucible for newfound strength? As the night deepened, their stories braided together into a rich tapestry of shared resilience, a stunning echo of life itself. United in their humanity, they dared to embrace the unknown, to delve into the hearts of one another, together, as they journeyed toward the light that awaited them beyond. It was more than just a gathering of souls. It was the awakening of spirit, an invitation to walk upon the ground of possibility, a call to resurrection in its truest form. In closing, Tabitha whispered softly, "Let us remember that while life is fraught with questions and mysteries, we are never alone in our pursuit. With every breath, we awaken the power of love that transcends fear and isolation. In sharing our truth, may we illuminate the darkness and breathe life into our stories of hope, forever transformed by the light of resurrection." With these final words, they stood together united in the promise of life renewed, as shadows danced playfully in the candlelight, whispering of the beauty that emerges from every crack and crevice of the human experience. The echoes of their newfound understanding shimmered like stars in the night sky, guiding them ever onward in faith, reflection, and a transformative journey toward wholeness.